This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 001.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light.
Hey, what's happening, everyone? I am your host, Michael Bugg. With me, as always, my co-host, my co-founder, Dr. Jonathan Light.
Yes, that's right. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, Johnny. It feels very good to finally be filming the first episode with a guest.
Yes, it does.
Feels like we've been running uphill for weeks trying to get all of this going.
And basically we have. Let's be real about it with all of our listeners. This is not our forte. This is not our background. And yet we've taken it on and we are so close.
I was really laughing about this, Johnny, because we made the classic veterinary mistake that veterinarians despise when their clients do. So when we were trying to launch all of our social media here, what did we do? We hit Dr. Google and figured we'll just Google everything. We can do it. We know how to edit videos and make templates and all that stuff. But no.
Editing audio and pretending to even have a clue how to use GarageBand and everything else.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was laughing like the stuff that we get upset with clients for doing, for Googling it and trying to do it themselves. We just did it. So
that is completely the truth, but we're way past that now.
Yeah. My last resort was going to be to just spray my computer with apple cider vinegar. And I thought it fixes everything. It'll just produce a podcast episode for us. We'll be all good. Yeah.
That's what the Google told you, right?
That's absolutely.
What the Google told you.
You put that on everything. We put it on everything.
We're here for different reasons today. Why are we here today?
All right. So yeah, this is our first episode for all the guests tuning in. We're not really going to waste much time here. We want to get right into it. If you've been following along, you've heard my story, you've heard Johnny's story, and now we're going to actually start bringing on other guests in the veterinary profession and trying to dive into some of those deep issues. So we have a fantastic guest with us today. But before we dive into that, a little quick segment we're throwing in is our quick tip. What do you got for us today, Johnny?
Excellent. Well, our quick tip for today is a little bit of a direction for all the veterinarians that are listening to this podcast today. We have created a private Facebook group. Yes, at this point, it is only for veterinarians, where we're going to get into deeper conversation and allow a discussion to flow, which sometimes can't happen in this podcast format. So if you are a veterinarian, please log on to Facebook, join in the group. I think we're just at around that 200 member mark already. And yeah, partake in the conversation. We're going to be putting in pieces here over the coming days that I think are going to be of great interest to you. And depending on what that looks like, and some of the guests, including techs and other veterinary professionals we have on in the near future that we have planned for, we're going to open up to other groups, communities. That's what the project is about. So for our quick tip today, head on over to Facebook, join our group if you're a veterinarian.
Awesome. So for today's guest, as I said, we have an amazing guest here. He's been an inspiration to me. I know going through vet school and in my veterinary career, a true ambassador of the veterinary profession. He currently is the president of the SVMA, which is the Saskatchewan Veterinary Medical Association, and comes from a long line of veterinarians. Currently working at his grandfather's practice, which they started in 1952. I thought that was pretty cool. So with us today is none other than Dr. Kent Weir, just a phenomenal person. And without any further ado, let's just jump right in. All right, Kent. It's been a long time coming, but we finally got you locked down, and here we go. How are you doing today?
Good. just enjoying a lazy Sunday afternoon so far. So ready to indulge whatever you might have to
whatever we got to throw at you.
Whatever you throw at me, that's right.
I think we can come up with a few things.
You're a brave man, being the first guest ever on our Veterinary Project podcast. Yeah. So a lot of pressure on those shoulders.
Yeah. Well, as we were talking about, the pressure is getting to me. I got some good sweaty armpits here, so hopefully no one gets a flash of those during the interview here. But we'll see.
I think we'll be all good. So Kent, as we get diving into this, Johnny and I spent a lot of time sort of mapping out what we're trying to do here and talking about guests that we wanted to bring on and hear their story. And you kind of were one of those guests that jumped out at us. And we were like, man, we have to have Kent on as our first guest. Because when I think of you, and I know I've told this to you before, but you're just such an ambassador of the veterinary profession, such a positive person that we just couldn't wait to pin you down here and grill you with some questions.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, truthfully, beyond honored to be the first guest. Little surprised. And, I mean, if I'm being totally honest, when you first reached out to me, I was not expecting that you were, I don't know. I thought you were trying to get me to pyramid scheme. That's legit. I haven't really seen you since when we ran into each other actually I saw you at the free house there, whatever it's called in Saskatchewan. And prior to that, I hadn't seen you for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, I get this Facebook message from Mike Buggs saying that he wants to reach out and, contact me about something. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to buy whatever you're selling. I don't know what it is, but I just don't want to get involved in this. And I remember I was going skiing with a bunch of vet school friends that weekend actually. And it was perfect because I was like, hey, sorry, can't talk, going skiing with friends. If you really need to get a hold of me, try me again next week sort of thing. And Mike was like, no, that's fine. Cool. Yeah. And he got in touch with me again the next week. So yeah, this is not what I was expecting at all.
I knew you were ducking me. I was like, oh, this guy's pretty slippery. He's hard to get a hold of.
Love it.
Yeah, I was definitely digging my heels in a little bit. But obviously when I found out what it was about, I mean, I'm more than game to be the first guest. And like I said, genuinely so honored that you guys would think of me in that way. Because really in vet school, we didn't hang out. I mean, obviously we went to the same vet school events and that sort of thing. But definitely know both of you, Johnny, more so from undergrad. I remember you. Exactly. And then Mike, just because he's just this super young little baby that got into vet school. Everybody was like, who is this kid? Hey? So yeah, I mean, no, legit, very honored and excited to see where we get to today.
Awesome. So for all of our guests out there, tell them a little bit about who's Dr. Kent Weir.
Dr. Kent Weir, yeah. So I am a 2007 graduate from the Western College of Veterinary Medicine in Saskatchewan. I come from a long line of veterinarians, and people are always a little bit surprised how many of us there truly are. So my grandpa and his brother and their brother-in-law all went to OVC way back in the day. And then all three of them had a son or daughter that became a vet. So then that made 6 of us. And then my dad's sister married an Australian veterinarian and their daughter's a vet. And then me. So I am 8 of 9 veterinarians in the Weir family dynasty, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But really a lot of different roles within veterinary medicine they're working in and have worked in. So got some federal vets that work for the CFIA, some emergency vets, some who practiced, and actually 2 of them practiced and just decided veterinary medicine just wasn't the right choice for them, and they got out of veterinary medicine. My one uncle practiced for 1 year in small practice in Saskatchewan, and then just decided he just liked being a farmer better. So yeah, we kind of got the whole, and now he's a client of ours, and so I work with him, which is kind of fun. So when I graduated vet school in 2007, this is a small known fact. Actually, when I graduated vet school in 2007, I decided I did not want to be a vet. Little known fact. Yeah.
Tell us more about this.
I know, right? So yeah, in 2007, I graduated vet school, and I don't know, there was just something in me that was like, I don't think I want to do this. I think I want to try something else. And so, a long story short, is some friends of mine were going to work at this sports camp in Arkansas, and they invited me to go down and work with them in Arkansas. And so I thought, yeah, you know what, let's give it a go. So I went out to Arkansas, and I worked down in Arkansas at this sports camp for super well-off kids for about 6 months. And got offered a full-time job down there.
Like right after graduating?
Yeah.
Before graduation, actually. I flew back from Arkansas to attend graduation.
I had no clue about this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
True story.
And how many people do you think know this, Kent? Like, is this something you
like
share with your associates?
Yeah, I don't talk about it a whole lot. I mean, it's, you know, what it ended up turning out to be, I think, in the end, was that I had gone from like kindergarten through grade 12, 8 years of university. I got a summer job when I was like 13, worked every single summer. I think the idea of like graduating on a Friday, going to work for a Monday, and just working as a veterinarian for the rest of my life just seemed a bit daunting, you know? And so once the story started rolling in from my friends about their first spay and their first, you know, whatever they're doing, I kind of got that bug going, oh yeah, like I'm really missing out on something here. So, you know, I do want to be a veterinarian. And then actually, but I didn't really do that actually. I ended up going to Africa, spent 6 months in Africa as a goat vet, and then came back to Canada and settled in a little tiny town on the Manitoba border of Saskatchewan. Called Langenburg.
Yes.
Best decision I ever made in my whole life. Spent 6 years in Langenburg, and then in 2014, almost exactly 6 years ago, returned back to Lloydminster to start the takeover of the family practice, which my grandfather started in 52. Dad took over in 86, and yeah, I bought into 2 years ago. So here I am running a really large, in my opinion, mixed animal practice here in Lloydminster.
Man, that is so cool.
That was probably way more when you said, tell us a little bit about the vet. I'm like, here.
Fantastic.
I was born in 1981.
Man, that is so cool. Like, we've chatted a few times getting set up for this, and I had no clue about that little sort of moment of like, you know, I don't know, like pausing to be like, hey, did I make the right decision here? Is this really what I want to do? Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I should say after that comment is, it was the right decision. I mean, like I love being a veterinarian. I would agree with Mike. I am passionate about being a veterinarian, and I really can't imagine doing anything else in the world like at this point. Really genuinely. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's where I'm not saying that to focus on it. It's like that's why that was so shocking to me. Because everything I've ever seen of you is like, this, like, Kent is meant to be a veterinarian. You know, so it's probably comforting for people to know that you can still like have so much passion for the profession, but sometimes you wonder about, you know, did I make the right choice?
Yeah, for sure.
So you're now kind of in the family practice. And I know we were chatting a bit about like back when you were deciding like sort of what direction, and then coming from this long line of veterinarians, you had some really interesting and really great advice growing up about what the veterinary profession is. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's something that my grandfather and my dad are equally, if not more passionate about veterinary medicine than I am. And I think some amazing advice that my grandpa gave me and my dad fully supported was, I remember it was probably after my first year of university or maybe like my last year of high school sort of thing. Grandpa said to me, if you want to be a veterinarian and work in the veterinary industry, you need to go work a service industry job, which, as it kind of comes as a surprise, really. Like, he's like, he didn't recommend going to work with animals or going to work with a veterinarian. He said, go work in the service industry. And he said, because veterinary medicine is about is about pleasing people and making people happy. And veterinary medicine is a service industry. And he said, if you can make it in a service industry and enjoy a service industry, then you're truly made to practice veterinary medicine in the way that I'm practicing veterinary medicine, that I wanted to be, right? Like that traditional mixed animal in a clinic sort of practitioner. I took a job at Canadian Tire here in Lloydminster, my first summer after finishing university. I worked in the sports department, and to this day, it was one of my most favorite jobs that I've ever had. And it was about helping people. And that's fully what it was about, And I honestly, like, genuinely really, really enjoyed that. And I remember my grandpa being like, "Okay, good. You're ready to move on to the next phase, which is, let's get some animal experience now," sort of thing. Now it's time for you to get some experience with animals. And I think it's a pretty interesting take on veterinary medicine. And I'm not sure I've actually ever heard it anywhere else except from my dad and my grandpa.
They learn about that in school. That's not a topic that we talk about in any sense.
No, we always talk about the animal side of things. We always focus on the animals, and the number of times we focus on the people. I mean, we do learn a bit about communicating with people a little bit, or but the phrase that my grandpa used a lot was, behind every animal is a person.
Okay.
So every time you look at that animal, yes, the animal is important, but you need to remember that there's a person who has presented this animal to you that is equally important. And their concerns and wants and desires for this animal have to weigh in on how you make the decisions for this animal. So, super wise word.
It is. When the first time I heard that, it was kind of mind blowing, because I hadn't heard it anywhere else either. Mm-hmm. And now, after having like a 10+ year career, the wisdom in that is unbelievable, because it really is like a service industry. Yeah.
Well, and I think that I genuinely think if more people getting into veterinary medicine viewed it that way, we'd be setting them more, I think we'd set them up for success a bit more, because I just don't think that's part of the equation that any of us factors into. It's not traditionally what we're selecting for, or what your expectation is as a veterinarian when you get into vet school. You think, I'm just going to work with animals all day, and the reality is that you're working with people all day. It's explaining diseases, it's interacting, it's getting histories, it's comforting, it's grieving, it's counseling. So.
You spoke in a previous position that I was part of, that the veterinary industry has moved from being vet-centric. So if you're looking at practices where everything evolves and revolves around the veterinarian in that practice, but in today's day and age, we're now in a consumer. So we're in a client-focused centric practice. So we've gone from vet-centric to client-centric, where we have to evolve what we're doing on a day-to-day around that client, which is exactly what your discussion fits into so nicely.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And I think go ahead.
I was just going to ask, when you're, looking at bringing on associates, et cetera, you're an owner of a large practice now. Does that come into the conversation when you're assessing out different attributes?
I think so. So I've only hired one new associate since starting running my own practice, or being part of the practice. And I think, part of what I've maybe learned, we were talking, my friends and I were talking on this ski trip that I was talking about earlier, something in the interview process that would be really important would be to ask about things completely unrelated to veterinary medicine, and more about people, and not just like the classic, like, tell me a time you had a conflict with somebody and how did you resolve that, wah, wah, wah. But like, the question we thought of that I think actually probably says a lot about how you like people, or how you interact with people, is just about like their social life in vet school. Like, how many sport teams were you on? Did you like Roundup? Hey, what did you think of Roundup? Did you love Roundup? Like, how many skits?
Did you know what Roundup is?
So I think that like that's something I would like to try and incorporate into an interview process, but I haven't really found a way, to answer your question a bit more directly, John. I haven't really found a way to select for that, I guess, in an interview
Very
process
fair.
at this point.
Very
So
fair, but so important.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is like knowing you and sort of going into that conversation like this, the human element, like the soft skills that aren't medicine and surgery around being a veterinarian are just so important for success. You know, when you said you've only had to hire one, that's kind of leading me to believe you've only had to hire one because you probably retain your staff because I'm guessing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that, you know, like,
yeah, I mean, I won't take any credit for that at this point, truthfully. I just haven't been in a management role long enough, but I feel like my dad and my grandfather have done a very, very good job of that. I mean, yeah, if you were to go through our staff list and look at the number of years of service of those staff, like it's mind-blowing to me. I mean, we have through 5 people 20 years plus that work at the clinic. Like that's like, I don't know if that happens anywhere.
Unheard of. Yeah.
You know, and then tons of like that middle, you know, 15, like probably another 10 or 5 or 10 at that stage, you know, so like half our staff has been there for 15 years plus sort of thing, or around that 15 plus. So that's pretty crazy. Super crazy. Yeah. But yeah, and I think that's a testament to yeah, I mean, probably being concerned about people in general, because if you're concerned about people as clients, you're probably concerned about people as staff as well, right? So
that's truly amazing. I mean, I know, Johnny, you've been in more management roles than I have been in, but that seems unheard of to me.
Yeah, there's very few clinics that you can go into where you'll have more than 1 or 2 individuals that are plus 20 years, let alone that number. If you're saying, you know, 5 to 10, and that you've only had to hire 1 associate in 2 years, where, you know, that churn rate is pretty high out there right now. That's, again, a sentiment. And that's in a mixed animal, like a large mixed animal practice, which can even harder to hire for at times. So,
yeah.
It goes to you guys.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, again, coming back to why we're so drawn to you. And like, and I mean, even when I think back to our time in vet school together, like just sort of seeing you interact with others, it is that piece of like, you were just so genuinely interested in everyone's life. Like, what do they have to say? Like,
right.
You referred to, we ran into each other at the free house, and, you know, it was just a chance encounter.
Yeah.
But when I'm speaking with you, like, you are locked in, you know, like it's so interesting. That just draws people in, that skill set that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, you know, a term that you, and I don't want to steal your thunder here a little bit, but a term that you had used earlier, when you first reached out to me, I guess you were saying like, we just want to talk to you because you're just such a positive person. And I just remember kept being like, you're like, what things do you want to talk about? And I didn't want to talk about, in our pre-interview, you're like, yeah, but you didn't talk about positivity. And I'm just like, yeah. I don't want to talk about positivity because I don't know if that's like defines me. Like, I don't know if I am I mean, I am a positive person, but like, I don't know. It's something about that term, like just didn't sit well with me, you know, and you kept kind of coming back to it. And then you were like, at one point you said something along the lines like, you know, it's not that you're positive, it's that you're invested and you want to spend time with people. And I was like, like, yeah, like I'll accept that. Like I'll take that label as like wanting to be invested in people. And that's very true for me in any situation, whether it's like in a work situation or a social situation. And probably to a fault in some respects, you know, like my buddies and I are out for a beer after work, and we go to this place in Lloyd that's got a lot of like, it's like a lot of traffic that kind of goes past the tables. And it's not uncommon for like, if one of your buddies sees a buddy walk by, that buddy will join you for, you know, half an hour or something like that and have a beer with you. And I'm probably to a fault, like, tell me who you are. Like, who are you? What's your last name? Like, who are your parents? Where do you farm? Like, you know, I'm like, I want to know everything about you. And like, I want to learn that right now. And I want to get all the information I can right away. So it's maybe a bit overkill sometimes, but it's a very genuine and a very natural thing for me that I just, I genuinely want to know who somebody is, what makes them tick, what makes them be the person they are, you know? And yesterday, my buddy and I were actually driving up to Edmonton to a wedding. And I really realized that I probably spend a lot of my, what would I call it? Like idle time, or like, you know, where I'm not doing much. Like if I'm driving or like laying in bed at night or whatever, I'm often thinking about like plausible reasons for why someone acted the way they did, or plausible reasons for why someone is the way they are. And that, you know, and it's not like I'm wanting to solve their problems, and I'm just like, why would that person act that way, sort of thing. And yesterday on the drive up, we were just talking about so many things, and about some old relationships of his and whatnot. And it made me realize, like, well, why was she that way? What made her need to be that way? And so I genuinely am just interested in people.
And you can tell it's genuine interest. It's wanting to know more. Yeah. That's
which translates great into veterinary medicine, you know? And like, to go back to Grandpa's thing, like that's probably why I have succeeded in veterinary medicine, is because I'm so interested in the people. And so the people of the pets think, oh, wow, like he's such a great vet. And it's like, well, no, I'm just interested in hearing about you. And so when I connect with them, they automatically think that I can, you know, do brain surgery on their dog, which is.
And, you know, there's a saying, I don't know where it comes from, but it's people don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel.
Right? Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah. You know, and it's like, I go back whenever we ran into each other at a conference in San Diego also. And it's like, whenever I chat with you, I just feel great.
Right.
Because it is that genuine like curiosity and interest. I'm like, man, that was a great conversation with Ken. Like,
good. I'm glad to hear that.
So, and I know you've told me some pretty funny stories about your time in practice and kind of putting those skills to use. And where at the end of the day, maybe you didn't actually even know what you were doing medically, but the clients just love you.
Love it.
Yeah. I mean, this is a story that we talked about earlier on, and I think this is a great segue. We didn't even set it up, I promise everyone. This actually just segued so well. So I mean, the long story short is I'd honestly been probably a veterinarian I've been a veterinarian for a while, but I had only been practicing in Langenburg for maybe, like, it might have been my third or fourth day working. And I was on call, and I got a phone call from a very frantic horse owner whose horse was colicking. And for any veterinarian, especially new veterinarians, you know, that's like you go from here to here really quickly, especially like when you just don't know what you're doing, you know? So 6 a.m. lady panicked on the phone, her horse was going to die if someone didn't get there soon, sort of sentiment, you know? And so I hop out of bed, I rip down to the clinic, I pack up as much stuff as I can, including the 10-minute equine consult. And I am driving as fast as I can while flipping through pages of the 10-minute equine consult, because I don't know what a resting heart rate on a horse is. I don't remember what the sounds should sound like. I don't remember what you're supposed to palpate. I don't know. I'm just like kind of panicked, quite truthfully, you know? And so I arrive at the farm, and the lady is like pacing. She's walking the horse. She's got this mare that she's got on the end of the halter. And I walk up, and, you know, and she just kind of leaps on me like, gotta save my horse, sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like, okay, what do we do here? I'm like, okay, we're gonna take a heart rate on this horse. And I go to my truck, and oh shit, I do not have a stethoscope with me. So I'm like, okay, well, it's a big animal. You can probably feel its heart through its chest, right? So I get my hand on the horse's heart, and I'm like taking a heart rate. You could kind of feel it, probably not super convincingly, but you could feel it. And then I'm starting to engage with the owner, right? So I'm like, tell me about the horse. Where did you get her from? How long have you lived on this farm for? How many horses do you have? What do you do with the horses, right? Like, I'm just partially because I'm panicked, but partially because I'm also like genuinely interested. It was a really nice little spot, beautiful little log house, little red barn. I'm curious about it, right? So I'm going to start talking with that. So hand on the heart. Okay, gut sounds. That could be a little challenging. Well, you know, my hand worked for the heart. Let's just try the hand for the gut sounds. Taking gut sounds. And then I'm like, well, we can give it some Banamine. No, you can't. Not if you don't take Banamine to a horse colic. And I'm like, what did I bring? Well, I
brought your hand. You brought your hand.
Right? Yeah, this magical hand. So I had I had a thing of lube. I had my, my big, long, nice OB sleeves. So I'm like, I literally don't know what to palpate for, but it's the one tool that I actually happen to remember. So let's just palpate. So I get my glove on, I lube it all up, but I get in there, and when you palpate a horse, you're just like, literally, like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't remember. And so I'm palpating, and after about like 30 seconds of palpating, this horse leans over, starts eating grass. I pull my hand out, has a big old shit, and she's just like, oh my gosh, like, the horse is saved. And I'm like, yeah, awesome. Like, keep doing what you're doing. Like, don't feed it anything, that's going to give it colic again. So honestly, like 7 days later, horse colics again, boss gets called out. My boss is a little bit older than me, but not a whole lot older than me, graduated like 6 years in front of me maybe or something. And so she goes out there. She's a seasoned veterinarian. She is like the textbook veterinarian at everything she does. And I learned so much from Audrey in that sense. She had the stethoscope and the Banamine, and she had Torb, and she had, palpation sleeves, and she took everything she should have. But, she is down to business. When she gets to an animal, she does what the animal needs, and then she moves on to the next animal. So she got there, she more appropriately took a heart rate than I did and listened to gut sounds more appropriate than I did, gave it a dose of Banamine, and was kind of packing up her stuff to leave. And the owner was like, you didn't do the thing that Kent did with his arm up, And I had told her the story, like she knew that I'd forgotten everything. And in her head, she's just like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I actually work up a colic properly. And somehow this new grad that has been working for me for 3 days impressed this woman more than I did. Like she thinks that he did a better job than I did. But like, it just goes to show that, like, truthfully, like, all that lady wanted was someone to hear her and make her feel cared for as well, and by asking those questions about that little old mare and whatnot was really what gave her the impression that I cared and that I knew what I was doing. So I often remind new grads about that, because I think it is such an important part of veterinary medicine that we do forget about, that the owner is important, and not just like doing what they want, but engage with them, I mean, we've all been in exam rooms, and it gets a little old being like, talking about the pets all the time, right? Like, I don't know, I just talk about like Mexico and Hawaii, or the sports their kids are playing, or, the lake, or those things. And I think people really appreciate that. They really feel like you care about them, and indirectly, they just assume you care about their pets. So. Yeah,
that story, that really made me laugh. It's such a good example of that soft skill set that you have, like to go into any situation, even like shorthanded, missing some tools, but still to just, deliver everything the client wants.
And more to the fact that you've got a new client and the boss doesn't.
I know, right? Oh dear, poor Audrey. I feel bad for her still for that. No, it's good. Yeah. It's all good. But yeah, I just, I think that often people just want to deal with someone who they feel like cares about them. And I think that's just something that we all forget,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can. Okay. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit just to make sure we keep moving. Kind of along this lines, like when thinking back to our time together in vet school, I mean, it seemed like everyone knows Kent, right? If you are a Western Canadian veterinarian, within 4 years of us, you would know Kent. And, watching you go through and interacting with all the different years of people and all the connections you made, and you said something that I've never heard before that was just a great point about students moving through veterinary school, competing with each other. And you had had such a incredible take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was in vet school, I remember, I mean, you're so excited to get into vet school. And B, you're so excited to, well, maybe not everyone. I was so excited to have a whole new group of friends, you know? And for me at the time, I won't say that I was thinking what I'll say in a bit here, but like in the moment, I was just happy to meet new people, and I love meeting new people, experiencing new people. And I guess for me, because I also wasn't like a top grade student, I wasn't there to compete with other people because I knew that I wasn't in that competition. Like I wasn't going to win the gold medal. This is not who I am. That was never even on the radar or a goal of mine for that matter, you know? But I think I was on a steering committee for the SVMA in the fall here. And we were just talking about like new graduates and mentorship, and, you know, this whole story came up. And I think something that I really recognized through that process, sitting around with a bunch of other new grads, was that, you know, a lot of us look at our classmates as still looking at it as competition, as we did in our pre-vet years. But I think a better way to look at those classmates is as colleagues, and colleagues for life, you know, because I love people, I love getting to know people. I have my network, my veterinary network of people who I can reach out to and contact for that difficult colic, or you know, an orthopedic case, or seeing a snake or a turtle or something, or, you know, a surgery case or an ophtho case, or whatever that might be. You know, I have no hesitation to reach out to a lot of people, and I really think that we need to change our idea as a veterinary student to not look at our fellow classmates as competition or competitors, but be like, hey, these are my colleagues, and they're going to be your colleagues literally for life. The veterinary world is very small.
Yes.
And if you don't realize that now, students, please realize. And we're in a great market right now because jobs are aplenty. But if we ever get into a point where, you know, jobs are not aplenty, it's pretty easy for me to reach out to John or Mike, and there's going to be like, I don't know, I would be curious, you know how they always talk about like that, like 6 degrees of separation in the world, or I think it's 3 degrees of separation in Saskatchewan, but I feel like veterinary medicine would be like
1 or 2.
1 or 2 degrees, right? Like
1 or 2.
You're going to know someone who knows someone. That's as far as it goes. And so, yeah, I just think that, like, why not just view that as a great opportunity? And you're obviously not going to get along with everyone.
Yes.
I don't get along with everyone, but why not try?
Have that, the collegial attachment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where that can go later. And you don't even know it. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. So, yeah, I think that's what we talked about, Mike, was something along the like.
Yeah, and it's just such great advice, because I can remember when we were going through, I do remember there would be a bit of competition among some like students, and it's like when you say the colleagues for life, like you know, you go through that veterinary school experience, and you're kind of bonded forever at that point, you know. And I know you said you guys have you have a group chat with a handful of your classmates where you guys chat still every day.
Yes.
What are you, 13 years out or something like that?
Yeah, literally every day.
Yeah, that's so impressive.
And we do, you know, we chat every single day, and I don't want to say we made a pact, but we made kind of an agreement that every odd year we would travel to some interesting CE somewhere, which is where we ran into Mike in California there. Yeah. And, you know, so I think that, like, just even that, it's like you can continue having this great social experience outside of vet school still, you know, like I still have a great, abundant social life within the veterinary community 13 years later.
Absolutely.
So,
it's a great group to be part of. Such a great group.
Yeah. Okay, Kent. Yeah. I mean, chatting with you, I'm sure we could go for hours. We're gonna move into what we're calling our impact round here. So you're the first guest that's gonna have these fired at you, but we're gonna ask them to all of our guests. So, are you a cat or a dog person?
Okay, like traditionally, strictly dogs. I would just say, like, in more recent years, I've been like noticing some more interesting peculiarities about cats that I'm finding more endearing. And I think right now I'm the SVMA president. I love to travel and I like to get away for the weekend. And so I wish I was a cat person because I feel like cats would fit in my lifestyle so much better.
So easy. Yeah.
So easy. But the biggest thing is I just don't like the idea of them on my countertops. It's the one thing I just can't get past.
And they're little stealth ninjas. Like my cat, he knows you don't jump on the counter when I'm around. As soon as you leave, you come home, there's footprints. So
you just sold me. Yep, dog person.
Cats don't care.
Okay,
right, I know the answer. I know the answer to this, but true or false? I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian since I was a kid.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. Ever since I was a little kid, yes.
You're the guy that wrote letters at age 3. Not age 3, no, grade 3 or something.
Grade 3, yeah. I wrote a letter to W.C.V.M. before my friend Robbie Dean's birthday party at the bowling alley. I remember it very clearly. Handwritten letter to the W.C.V.M. asking for entrance information, but also secretly because I was super, super homesick and scared of moving to Saskatchewan. I was going to try and ask for some special, exception. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm like the 8th vet in my family. You think they could let me stay in Lloyd and just train here or something,
Absolutely.
That was my goal, truthfully.
That's so good.
That one makes me smile so much. You were planning ahead.
Yeah.
Alrighty. How would your friends describe what you do for a living?
Well, what they'd actually, if my buddies were actually sitting here right now, what they would say would not be appropriate. So what I would say, if I said to be appropriate, they would probably say I shove my hand up cows' assholes all day. Like that's probably the reality of what they think I do. And I mean, at certain times of the year,
that is
basically what I do.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. What is your favorite hobby?
I think I would have to say volleyball would probably be the number one hobby right now.
Nice. What in this world are you most grateful for?
I think, I would say relationships. If I had to say anything, I think just being able to interact with other people is like the most joy I get. And I think if you took that away from me, I would be absolutely miserable, and I think I'm very, very, I'll use the word blessed. I have tons of relationships and tons of great relationships with a variety of different people. And I truly cherish those like that. Yeah, for sure. Relationships.
Awesome. Yeah, you can tell. Okay, we got one more question for you, but before we dive into that, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I know we said it off the start. You're an inspiration, I know, to me, and probably to many others, a true ambassador of the veterinary profession, and even just what it means to be a good person, like contributing to community. So thankful that you said yes to coming on here, and you didn't keep brushing me off. So happy to have you, Kent.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you, Kent. Thanks for taking the chance.
You betcha.
Yeah. Okay, Kent, last word goes to you. What message do you want to leave for the veterinary community?
Wow. I mean, I guess it'd be pretty obvious. And I would just echo, probably the words of my late grandfather, Glenn Weir. Veterinary medicine is a service industry, and it's about the people. That's at the end of the day, being a vet is about making people happy, and behind every animal is a person. So thanks to Glenn Weir for that one.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap, on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly. So be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and/or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to the Veterinary Project Podcast at gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the Veterinary Project Podcast at gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.